okay if it's not too cold for you. Okay. Good morning. Thank you, Arafeli, for this very kind introduction. And as you said, I'm working now almost 30 years for libraries. That's a long time. And when I look back from the very first moment when I arrived in the library field, the death of libraries was predicted. And this continued all over these 30 years. There's always the prediction the libraries will die. What is, after 30 years we are still alive, I would say, in good shape, even in better shape as before. This means most of the predictions which I've heard in the 30 years proved wrong. And I would like to say it with Winston Churchill. It's hard to make predictions, especially regarding the future. And as we see, when we are looking back, we can be proud what libraries have done in the past, and I guess we can even be more excited what libraries will do in the future. And what I will try to do in the next 50 minutes is to give you a view back to our history, how we developed, as the title says, from gatekeeper to gateway to gate opener. And then I will try also to have a look in the future of my organization, of IFLA, which is the Global Voice of Libraries. And I would like to think with you about what can we do together. Several of you may have been here yesterday for my first speech, and this speech today is in many ways a follow-on from that, what I talked yesterday, but a different takeoff on the vision I wanted to set out for you there. So yesterday we looked a lot of the importance of networks and groups of bonds and bridges. I drew parallels between the role that libraries play in their societies and the role of that associations, and in particular IFLA play in the library field as a whole. I suggested that concepts of social infrastructure and social capital could help us understand what we do and what we are aiming to create at a macro level. That's how library resources could provide a reference point for communities, and the IFLA strategy could provide a reference point for libraries in general. But what about the resources, this information, the individuals that use it, and the role libraries play here? That's the topic of my talk today. And so I want to share a story of two parallel journeys, two parallel transformations. The transformation of the role of information on the one hand, and the transformation of the role of libraries on the other side. Both are combined from my point of view. Transformations that also matter crucially for IFLA, for the global library field, because they demand a transformation of us as well. And when I say us, I mean all of us. This means I mean also you. You are part of this transformation, of this journey. This is a journey in three parts, because as I will argue, the change in the role of information in our lives, in our societies, has meant that the role of libraries has evolved from gatekeeper to gateway, and from gateway to gate opener. And to avoid any disappointment at the end, I should underline that this is not a story that has concluded. It is ongoing and will require focus, energy, and cooperation. But it is a story where we have the chance to influence things, to do our best to ensure that if not the ending, at least the future that we will see in the years to come is as happy as possible. And as I said, I have some doubts in predictions for the future, but I know the only one way to influence the future is to produce our future ourselves. To be active, no one will create our future. Only we can create our future. And with the IFLA strategy, we want to do this together with you. So let's start the journey. Lay back, relaxed at the beginning. It will be a story about the history of libraries, how we came up. Enjoy all what we achieved in the past and be alert when I speak about the future. So to start, libraries as gatekeepers. This is a role that dates back to a time where books and the ideas they contained were seen as requiring protection. Protecting books is of course not an unreasonable idea. It is indeed part of the responsibility of conservators in libraries here and worldwide to make sure that invaluable historical texts do not disappear because of everyday wear and tear. Too much light, too much moisture, too much movement can cause serious damage. We know this, many of us have studied it. And of course there's also need for security. Perhaps not in the form of the chains used to prevent books being moved in the medieval libraries of Europe, but we know that theft, that trafficking are serious problems. We need to take action to document our collections fully, to keep them safe, to cooperate when they do faster disaster. The situations that have faced books and manuscripts in conflict zones around the world, faced with extreme weather in the past years, the past decades, have shown that the risk is all too real. And librarians, through following good practices, through taking the right precautions, and in some cases through personal bravery, have delivered, are delivering on their responsibility to keep works safe so that they are available for future generations. But historically, we need to protect the books as physical support was often matched by the desire to limit access to the book as content. Of course, in the days before digital, it was less easier to separate content from support. Words were applied to the page and they stayed there. If you wanted to reproduce them, you either had to memorize them or copy them by hand. For obvious reason, this makes books extremely rare. We have of course had printing presses a few centuries, but even then, until the 19th century, books remained expensive. Yet it wasn't just a question of cost. Information, knowledge, learning were also seen as the preserve of the elite. They were the ones taking the decisions on behalf of others. And so only they needed the education and the information needed to do this. In contrast, access to information for the wider population was seen at best as unnecessary and at worst as harmful. Those outside of the elite were expected simply to follow orders rather than taking their own decisions, expected simply to be hard workers, executors of orders rather than innovators than citizens. It followed that literacy itself was highly restricted, with only the wealthiest given the education necessary to read and write. As a result, libraries were built but were for the most part limited to those who could pay a subscription or who were affiliated to an institution. The librarian was not only a guardian, but also a gatekeeper. The librarian decided who could enter, who could access information at a time when there were precious few other options. And indeed, in the days of closed stocks, the librarian was also the one who decided what books someone could read, whether the request of the researcher could be met or otherwise. The judgment of the librarian was the deciding factor between access or exclusion. The library, the librarian, managed the gate. I should underline the work of libraries in this phase is not be to dismissed. The intellectual evolution of our world, our ability to conceive of history, the crossing of ideas and the creation of new ones is all thanks of libraries. When Newton talked of only being able to see so far because he was standing on the shoulders of giants, it was libraries that helped him get up there, thanks to their collections of works by the scientists and thinkers that came before him. We too stand on these shoulders. The historical books and manuscripts that we can digitize and put online today are only there because of the work of librarians of the past. They were arguably doing the best they could do at their time in the conditions in which they worked, both practical and philosophical, and have left us a lot to work with. But time changed, and we have come to our first transition. Because over the 19th and 20th centuries, there was a growing understanding that by limiting access to information, access to books to the elite, countries, societies were holding themselves back. While the first industrial revolution may have been powered by people without education, carrying out repetitive tasks by the time of the second industrial revolution, it was broadly accepted that basic literacy was a must. Even though universities remained the preserve of the elites, there was a powerful drive to ensure that every member of society had at least a primary education. For some, the reasoning behind this was self-interest. Workers who could read could follow a manual, understand a shift pattern, or otherwise become more useful for their employers. There may well have been an element of paternalism in there, that through books it would be possible to civilize people, to draw them away from the pubs and bars. But for others, there was a greater care for well-being. Being able to read created possibilities to live a more fulfilled life, to discover new ideas and experiences. In any case, the result was the same. Whole new possibilities for access to information were opened up. The books, newspapers and pamphlets that had previously been accessible only to the few could now be read by the many. In parallel, technological progress brought down the costs of printing, with books themselves being to become affordable. Books, pamphlets, newspapers, posters suddenly became more common. Maybe not affordable for all, but certainly affordable enough to lead to an explosion of new content, of new ideas, of new information. Information that people could now read. This marks an important change in our attitude to information, an acceptance that surrendering elite control over information brings benefits for society as a whole. That more information in the hands of more people was a positive for societies, for development. What did this mean for the role of libraries? Before answering this question, I would like to switch this off because this flickers the whole time and it's not good for you. Is it possible to switch it off? I don't think it's by accident that this period is also the one where we started to see the opening of whole systems of libraries which are truly open to the public. There is a logical parallel with the movement towards universal education. If it was worth educating children, it was worth giving the opportunity to continue to learn throughout life. This is not to say that the concept of the public library dates only from this time. Arguable, these existed thousands of years ago in Greece and in Rome, and French colleagues will, I'm sure, note that one of the initiatives of the revolution there was to take the books previously held in monasteries and make them available through public libraries. But it is the period when public libraries became widespread. It also marked an important change in the role of librarians themselves. Clearly, there was still a need to protect the most vulnerable, the most precious works. And indeed, more scientific approaches made it possible to do this more effectively. But now libraries were gateways, a means of helping more people overcome the barriers they faced to access information. Because, as I suggested earlier, despite rising levels of education and literacy, despite the falling cost of books, we were still a long way from a situation where everyone had the money and skills to access everything. Even as more people could create their own private libraries in their own homes, this was far from a possibility for all. Knowledge, information for so many people was still relatively scarce rather than abundant. But thanks to libraries, it didn't need to be so. They offered a shortcut, a means of bypassing the barriers created by a market that had little interest in selling to people without money, as well as a place to develop literacy skills. A response to the fact that it is through information that people can grow, improve their lives, and become consumers. It is not possible to wait for people to become rich in order to become readers. Information could not be a luxury good. And many came, with libraries becoming symbols of civic pride, of progressiveness, of equality in societies. This is a role that they have held for well over a century. Even as books have become cheaper, even as literacy rates have increased, there are still those at risk of exclusion, of not seeing their needs made by the market, because they are living on the poverty line, because they lack literacy skills, at least in the language of the community where they live, because they are young families with children who raise through books fast that the market does not supply, because they want to carry out research using books which are not commonly available. Libraries are gateways to information, to knowledge for all these people. We are coming up to our next transition, but I would also like to argue that the way that libraries, public libraries, give access to the internet is a logical continuation of this gateway role. Because for all that interest, internet access has become more or less for all important in many countries. We cannot forget that many do not have it. Barely 50% of the world is online. And even in the best connected regions, there are still people who remain offline, out of choice or necessity. With more and more services available primarily over the internet, and indeed many sources of information which used to be in print now only online being available, are cut off, and this has serious consequences. Once again, libraries provide an answer here through the provision of public internet access, through computer terminals, through Wi-Fi. When we speak of information abundance, we shouldn't forget the people who cut off 50% of the world's population. It's quite different as for you in this room. And I know that here in Mexico, universities such as UNAM are active in helping public libraries get connected so that the communities they serve can also benefit. This helps not only those who do not have a home connection, but also those who feel unsure of themselves or who do not feel comfortable using a family computer to look for certain information. Those who want or need the help of someone else to do what they need to do or to develop new skills. Those who cannot afford to access electronic resources which are kept behind paywalls. Those who do not feel confident to use e-government services. In short, libraries are also a gateway in the digital age, ensuring that no one, regardless of their status, their wealth, their background, should be excluded from access to information. And yet, there is a further transition, one that is also linked to the internet. We have heard about already here several times, because even as libraries prove their ongoing value in giving people access to the internet, to information which might not otherwise be available to them, it is impossible to deny that for anyone with a smartphone, information now seems abundant. So much of the information to which libraries used to provide a gateway can now be found through other means. Indeed, the very idea of a gateway implies a barrier on either sides. But what if this barrier seems to have disappeared? The rise of open access means that a growing share of research outputs are available to anyone with an internet connection immediately or within a short period. Obviously, the share is still insufficient, but much has already been achieved. Meanwhile, apps and other digital tools promise to support language learning and literacy. E-book subscription services allow people to access the latest literature from their homes. And in the light of this, the most short-sighted commentators quickly jump to the conclusion that in this situation, we don't need libraries. Indeed, predictions of the demise of libraries have been a regular feature of commentary over the last few decades. I started with this, but they have constantly proved wrong, because libraries have developed a third role as gate openers. Just to come back to these predictions of the death of the library, they are not totally wrong, I would say, because the library of today is very different as the library as 30 years ago. There they were right, but what couldn't they imagine 30 years ago is the way like libraries developed in this decade. The library is different as 30 years ago. This is the reason why we exist. And I'm really confident that the libraries will also exist in the future and will have a bright future. But what we see is that the speed accelerates, development accelerates, and this means other tools to tackle the challenges of the future. And we must be aware, only when we do this together, we will tackle the challenges of the future. It's no time anymore for standalone solutions. This is outdated. We will not survive when we think just on ourselves. We have to think that we are united, that we are a global library field, and that we can do it only together in a way which is in a world which is globalized. But let's go back. I mentioned earlier that the existence of a gate implies the existence of a barrier. And I said there's a second transition from knowledge being open but scarce to knowledge abundance makes it seem that this barrier no longer exists, that the gate is no longer relevant, open or closed. But I would disagree with this, because it only seems that the barrier no longer exists. I want to argue rather that the barrier is still there, it has just moved, it has changed. Indeed, it has arguably become more complicated, and the need for someone to open the gate is as necessary as ever. This is because information abundance can be just as much of a problem as information scarcity, if not more so. We know this. When you want to disinform a person, you can give this person either no information or you give this person too much information. And this is the situation where we are. It can make it just as hard as it was before for someone to get hold of the information they really need to make the right decision. It is no longer necessarily a question of money, of basic literacy skills, of the availability of information even, but rather one of more advanced skills, information literacy, critical thinking, that can represent just as powerful a block on access to information. In the worst case, it leaves people feeling powerless and distrustful of all information, undoing the good work of the past hundreds of years. And this is where libraries can come in as gate openers. Clearly, libraries have been working to help researchers to make best use of information since before the birth of Internet. As we made the transition from gatekeepers to gateways, librarians no longer determined which books a researcher could access, but rather offered suggestions and skills. This role has developed further in our third phase, because it's not only researchers in academic and scientific institutions who need skills in order to be able to navigate the sea of information available to them. So do everyday citizens trying to take their own decisions about which job to apply for, which course to follow, which agricultural technique to adopt, which diet to take up. With so much information available, there is this need for support, for skills, for confidence. And this is what libraries can provide. Indeed, the Internet has made it possible to accelerate the performance of some of the more basic functions of libraries in finding the answers to simple questions. In doing so, it has freed up time for librarians to really make the most of the skills, the insight that are unique to the profession. And here also a remark. I guess many are always feared about the future. And I started my work, for example, in the journalism. And when I look now at the position of newspapers, I have to say they are working with 20% of the staff they have worked in my time 30 years ago. They have reduced the staff in newspapers 80%. And I want to say, we are really in a lucky position. Do you think that in the last 30 years 80% of the librarians disappeared? No. And that's good so. It's good for the society. But you should not complain. Complaining is not a strategy. We have to think further how we can develop our job, how to doing the best. Don't reduce the role of the libraries and that 80% of our colleagues are losing their job like journalists lost their jobs in the last 30 years. As I said, in doing so, it has freed up time for librarians to really make the most of the skills, the insights that are unique to the profession, and we should use this time. Otherwise, we are useless. To make an analogy with economic development, one that will doubtless be familiar here, libraries have an opportunity to move up the value chain, to take on a role that cannot be replaced, that is truly unique to them, that underlines how much a modern society needs its libraries. One where we celebrate what the Internet has brought us, the ease of access to information, the speed, because it really enables libraries to come into their own, to open up new possibilities for users to make new uses of the information that is out there, to power innovation, to empower people. It's not about stocks, it's about people what we are working. It's not about books. In the center of our work are the people. This is the change over hundreds of years. This is important. There's often talk about this being an information age, that we are living in an information society. For this age, for this society to be an egalitarian one, it is important that everyone, and not just the elite, has access not only to information, but also the skills to use it fully. Today, this means not just the core access to otherwise unavailable books, documents, and resources that libraries continue to offer. Not just the basic literacy that libraries support through story times, through the work with children, through building a love of reading, but also this key gate-opening function whereby libraries help everyone to build the competences that need to turn the possibilities of information abundance in the reality of better decision-making and better lives, to make sure that everyone can be equal in the face of the internet. I hope that this message that resonates with you, that you recognize your own role as gate openers in your own work, making the difference between access to information and meaningful access to information. Yet, in closing, I want to argue that in taking on this role, we need to be ready to work together more effectively, to raise our voices, to communicate with others. There's an urgency in this. There are growing numbers of people out there who question the progress that the internet has brought, who suggest that faced with information abundance, we need an information diet, that we should only listen to what they have to say and disregard the rest. We need ourselves to be careful. We need to resist the temptation to say that everything online is untrustworthy, is unreliable. We need to avoid looking arrogant, paternalistic, claiming that we alone know what is good for people, that we alone have a monopoly on quality. This will too easily lead to rejection, to irrelevance. We need to make a positive argument, not a negative one. Having made the progression from gatekeepers to gateway to gate openers, we need to avoid falling back. We cannot just become gatekeepers once again or be seen as wanting to play this role. While celebrating the new possibilities there are for people to express themselves, to ensure that a wider range of information is available than ever before, we need to underline how libraries provide a solution to all of the challenges linked to information. How libraries respond to the risk of decay and loss by preserving it over time. How libraries respond to economic inequalities by ensuring that income is not a barrier to access. How libraries respond to a lack of the skills needed to use information fully by providing competences, from basic literacy to advanced critical thinking. How be ensuring that access to information is meaningful for all. We can create stronger, fairer, more innovative societies. And in this, IFLA can help. At the beginning, I talked about how the transformation of information and the transformation of libraries necessitates a transformation of IFLA. And when I came in 3 years ago as Secretary General, it was clear for me that I wanted to change IFLA. I wanted to change IFLA to more inclusive, participatory organization. We cannot go on with the pattern of organization which are more or less in the sense of the 20th century. We can only be successful when we change our organization to inclusive, participatory organizations where we get the input from the people that we are serving. Otherwise, we are an elite organization. This sounds very great, but actually, such organizations will not have really a great future. Only when we are able to inspire, engage, and enable and connect our colleagues, we will succeed. This is about IFLA, this is about the transformation of IFLA we started. And luckily, I have to say, it was possible with the support of Gloria, who was president at this time, and who supported this transformation process to a total new IFLA. I wanted to speak with you. And without her, I think this process would have been hard. And so it was a great process that we went together. So, it's not about storytelling now, it's about thinking what comes in the next minutes, and I would like really that you concentrate, because it's a call to action. It's about how you can become part of this movement, how you can be a part of a global movement, of a global library movement. And I would really like to see as many Mexican colleagues active in this movement, and as well also many people from outside of these rooms. And I see you as ambassadors of the message and of the ideas we are discussing in the next minutes. It's about the shift from closed to open to abundant information. The shift from gateways, the shift from gatekeepers to gateways to gateways. What this means for an organization like mine, for its members. I believe that we need to drive this change, both through our advocacy work with decision makers at all levels, through our work to inspire, to engage, and to enhance professional practice, and through our ability to connect. This is what lies at the heart of the new IFLA strategy, launched at the World Library Information Congress just 2 months ago in Athens. It is a document that looks to catalyze a transformation in the global library field, to make us more united, more powerful, more effective in changing the world, to provide, as I suggested yesterday, the sort of reference point that is so crucial in creating and sustaining social capital, a central point around which people can interact, share ideas, build something new, a catalyst, a creator of new opportunities to speak, to share, to engage, a new guiding star for the library field. I hope some of you were there in Athens. It would be good if you would do it. I wanted therefore to finish by sharing what is in there, the key ideas, the key themes, the key areas of action around which I hope that we can come together. The framework for creating and sustaining a truly global movement that delivers on the potential of information to create a richer, fairer world. Because the intention of this strategy is to strengthen the position of libraries to improve people's lives worldwide. And this is so much connected with the theme of this conference on the Sustainable Development Goals. First of all, our vision, the guiding star for our organization, and I hope also for you. This is the phrase, the result of all the contributions that we received as part of the Global Vision process. The 30,000 plus people who shared their ideas, their priorities, their understanding of the strengths of the library field. A strong and united library field powering literate, informed and participative societies. In hundreds of meetings, thousands of ideas, Tens of thousands of opinions, hundreds of thousands of lines of data, 600,000 suggestions which we got from the global library field. This created these visions. The visions set out what we want to see in the long term, both for our own field and crucially for the communities that we serve. Maybe you are not aware what happened there. We organized here a total different way of developing a strategy. We went out and organized meetings all over the world, and we got answers from 190 countries from the world. Also a lot from Mexico, their dreams, their ideas, their values. And they are all in this vision integrated. It's the first time that a global organization did this, not only in the library field. It's the first time in the cultural science field that a global organization sets up a strategy made not by some people in a closed room, made by the people who are the representatives, by 100,000 millions of librarians, with the feedback from all associations of the world. This vision was created, and this is very different. And this vision is was our guiding star for the strategy, and I want to go on to speak more about our strategy. With this vision developed, I want to come to our mission, to inspire, engage, enable and connect the global library field. If the vision is our guiding star, the destination, what we are aiming for, the mission is the how. How we will create this strong and united global library field. So inspiring people, getting them motivated, excited about libraries, optimistic about the future. So creating a growth mindset, a readiness to take on the challenges which we certainly do face. So engaging them because we need to take this energy, this experience, this intelligence, and ensure it is contributing. We need to ensure that everyone feels a sense of belonging to IFLA, to the global library field, that they are ready to listen, to contribute, to participate. This is a total different strategy. It was built with the ideas of the global library field, and it is built up that we are working together for this, that the IFLA headquarters in Den Haag and the IFLA governing board give support in the regions, but also that your contributions come up. Without your contribution, this strategy will not work. And through enabling, giving our field the skills, the knowledge, the tools that it needs to deliver in a changing world. So ensuring that our field is a learning field, one where we can always do better today than yesterday. And finally, through connecting, because as I've underlined so many times in the course of this speech, connections are a form of capital, a form of wealth. They enable us to do more, to do better. This is our mission. I hope this resonates to you. This is a call to action, and I would like really that you go out after it, go to our website, and go on. We have retained our core values, our belief in the vital importance of freedom of access to information and freedom of expression, and the need for access to information for social, educational, cultural, democratic and economic development. The understanding that effective library services are in turn essential to achieving this, and our commitment to ensuring that all members of our federation can engage in our work. Underneath these three, the vision, the mission and values of IFLA, which apply across all our work, we have 4 strategic directions. This starts to break down these high-level goals and methods into practical work streams. We will strengthen the global voice of libraries because libraries depend on the support, on the activism of others, citizens, influencers, decision makers, and we need in turn to shape their view of libraries. We need them not just to like us, but to be ready to move for us, to act. Of course, we can at IFLA headquarters go along to global meetings, but the true power, the true legitimacy of our field comes from our reach. Who else has members, has representations in every country, in every town or village? To realize this power, we need every librarian to be ready to speak out, to be an advocate. It is only by joining our voices that we can really make change happen. This is a call to action. You have here 2 active associations. I really ask our associations here in Mexico to go on and really to go on in the spirit of this strategy, to connect Mexican librarians, to become advocates, to go on, because I have also to say, I usually don't go to symposiums and conferences of universities. I go only to a conference of a university with a strategic approach. I am here not to speaking, to give an academic speech. I'm speaking here to you because I want you that you become advocates, strong advocates for our profession. This is our future. We can create it only together. We will inspire and enhance professional practice. We have a unique position in the library field, a unique ability to reach out to tens, hundreds of thousands of people. With this comes a duty to develop and share insights and ideas, the sort of insights and ideas that lead to action on the ground. This is not just about academic reports, but about the practical work of our professional units, the real experts, the brain trusts of the library field, and how they can ensure that their knowledge and experience is shared in such a way that all can benefit. I spoke yesterday about that in IFLA we have this big brain trust in more than 50 sections, more than 1,000 experts from the whole world working on guidelines, standards, on support for the global library field. These are experts giving their work freely for IFLA. And it's also a chance to learn. And I'm really happy that several colleagues from Mexico are contributing to it. But it's also a chance for you, for your future, to become one of these officers, to work in a standing committee. You will learn, on the other hand, you will inspire others. And what we want to do with strategic direction 3, we will enable and connect the global library field. This is where the power of the network comes into its own, because it is clear that the best learning, the best motivation comes from working with each other. IFLA already provides a great opportunity to join, to experience the thrill of our network through our World Library and Information Congress, which I hope will be once in the next years in Latin America or even here in Mexico. But we know that not everyone can join every time. So we want to develop new possibilities in person, online, and new platforms which give more library and information workers than ever before the opportunity to share their knowledge. And finally, we will optimize our organization, because we believe that to support the network, to support its goals, we need to be as inclusive, as effective, as efficient as possible. Under each of these strategic directions, we have 4 key initiatives which I encourage you all to take a look, because they are the most specific areas where we will be active, and where I hope you will be active too, of course, where you can make that final connection, that critical connection, that critical contribution to the success of the global library field and the communities it serves. We will be making a call for you for libraries, for library associations, for library and information workers everywhere to share their actions, to let everyone else know what you are doing as a first step towards closer alignment, with a new openness, a new readiness to work together. It's about that we can see where you are working. I guess you do so many things already in the spirit of this strategy, because you developed it. It came in from you. But we have also to show that we are doing. It's about storytelling. Only when we show that we are doing, we are powerful. If we are silent about, we don't advocate it. This means if I will ask you to show actions which are in the spirit of this strategy, which you are already doing, but we want also inspire you that you go further, that you start new activities in the spirit of our strategy. And in 2 weeks we will come up on the IFLA website with a template where you can contribute, where you can write the great work, what is UNAM doing, for example, in the spirit of the strategy, and to bring their examples. And maybe you will find inspirations, I'm sure, in the strategy, what you can do in the future. And so it will become a powerful document, what the whole library world is doing. And with your activities here in Mexico, you can motivate, you can inspire librarians in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, elsewhere. Be a source of inspiration for your colleagues worldwide, and on the other hand, take over ideas from your colleagues from other parts of the world. This means we will be making a call for you, for libraries, for library associations, for library and information workers everywhere to share their actions. To let everyone else know what you are doing as a first step forwards, closer alignment, with new openness and new readiness to work together. I believe that the strategy can be the reference point which allows us to realize our vision, a strong and united global library field powering literate, informed and participative societies. We are in a world where the information has never been more important, where the possibilities to access and the skills to use information have never been more important, where libraries have never been more important. We must step up, and we will have a bright future, but we will have it only together. Thank you so much.